Good morning, good morning, good morning, and happy Sabbath to you. Happy Women's Month and happy birthday, Zachary. I hope you have an amazing day. You're up into double digits, and I will call you later. I hope you have an amazing birthday today. I did try calling you a bit later. I like to do the birthday as a sunset because the day starts at sunset. I just want to shout out to women this morning. It's Women's Month, and goodness, I think tomorrow is Mothering Sunday in the UK, if I remember. And that makes sense why there's Mothering Sunday in March. Yeah. I'm on the different side of the pond. So sometimes the days get mixed up and muddled up. So happy Women's Month. And I just want to shout out to two amazing women in my life. There have been so many women in my life that has made left an indelible mark and impression. But this morning, I want to shout out to my mother and my grandmother, my paternal grandmother and my mother. And my mother was an amazing woman. I called her the community Dorcas, and she thinks she had to raise another Dorcas, which I think sometimes they get it in the blood. Yes, so my mother was an amazing woman, and she spent an a very short time in my life, but that short time was an impactful short time that left me in. My mother has been dead longer than I more than half of my life, and this year is 30 years since my mother has died, and it was a short time with you, but those short time had made me fixed for eternity. And it's been a really short time with my mother. But my mother knew that she had a short time on this earth because she talked about it a lot. And for those short years, so much was learned and packed into those short years that left an incredible impression on me for today. A lot of you hear me talk about sayings that my mom says a lot. So, I had a very short time with her, and it meant a lot to me. So my maternal grandmother, she died 2 years after my mother, also, my paternal, and she also left an amazing impression. If there's one person who knows how to tell you, I call it a gentle giant. And that little smile that she gives that it says a lot. She has the way of telling you that it's okay, but it's not okay, if you know what I mean. And you could put on a dress and twirl around, Grandma, how does this look? And she gives a little smile that says, it's okay. It's not okay, go take it off. Yeah. So I just want to shout out those two amazing women. There are a lot of women who have touched my life, but I just want to shout out to in honor of my mother and my grandmother, Emmeline and Jennifer B, that's Jennifer B and Emmeline, who has left such an indelible impression on me. And today I want you to reflect on the woman who has left an impression in you. And there are many women in the Bible, I've loved a few of them, like the lady at the well, the Lady W at the well. Yeah. She's one of my favorite women in the Bible. And the woman with the issue of blood, Hannah and Deborah, and there's some other women in the Bible that has left some impression on my mind too. Women of virtue and women who I can't even step in some of their shoes. But this morning, we want to talk about aligning with God's voice. And 1 Samuel 3 verse 10 says, Speak, Lord, for your servant hears you. No, I'm not talking about a woman this morning. I'm sticking to the profile. Missed a few days. So Samuel's life exemplified the importance of aligning with God's voice and starting from a young age, reminding us that God says, My sheep knows my voice. And it's important as followers of God to ensure that we know his voice. Now, his readiness to listen and respond to God at such a young, tender age set him apart as one of Israel's most significant prophets and judges. Can you imagine in all the adults that's been in Israel that God had to speak to a child even in his house? That speaks volume. Sometimes we dismiss children as if they don't know a clue what they're saying and have nothing to contribute. But here we see God coming to speak to Samuel. Now, that tells us a lot about what the word says about children and understanding and development. So, unlike many others, Samuel's obedience and receptiveness were constant. From his childhood into the temple to his lifelong ministry, His story challenges us to be attuned to God's guidance and shows us that alignment with God's voice requires both a sensitive and a willing heart. There are three significant lessons from Samuel's life. First, hearing and heeding God's voice began in Samuel's childhood as he served in the temple under Eli's mentorship. When God called Samuel, he initially did not recognize the voice of the Lord, but was instructed by Eli to respond with, "Speak, Lord, for your servant hears." Samuel's story emphasizes that true alignment with God starts with a willingness to listen and respond. God's value a heart that is eager to hear from him, even when his message is unexpected or challenging. Samuel's obedience to God's voice laid the foundation for his prophetic ministry, demonstrating that hearing God is only the beginning, action must follow. In our own lives, we are called to cultivate a similar sensitivity, being willing to not only hear God's voice, but also to heed his instruction. It's one thing when we hear, but as we said, there's a difference between listening and hearing. So we need to not only hear God's voice, but we need to listen up and take heed and act on it. Heed his instruction regardless of the cost, regardless of who we're flattering. Samuel knew his parents, but Eli was like his father. And these boys that God is talking about were like his brothers now. Now, second, demonstrating obedience and offering. Samuel's ministry was marked by unwavering faithfulness, even when it required delving into difficult messages and delivering them with precision. One of his most challenging tasks was confronting Eli, his spiritual mentor, about the judgment coming in his own family because of disobedience. That must have been difficult for him to do. Couldn't have been an easy task for a child. Despite the emotional difficulties, Samuel, as a child, boasted up the courage, obeyed God's command, proving his complete submission to God's authority, even though he didn't fully understand it as a child. This act of obedience highlights that alignment with God often involves making personal sacrifices. But Samuel's life teaches us that offering ourselves to God means placing his will above our comfort and reputation. And sadly, we see that Samuel's sons didn't take heed either. Don't know what happened there. Obedience is an offering of trust and surrender, and it positions us to be used powerfully by God. As we reflect on Samuel's example, we are challenged to consider whether we are willing to deliver God's message, even when they're difficult, and to offer our lives fully in service to his purpose. Sometimes I struggle with those difficult messages. Sometimes I do, and sometimes God just bring them out just like that when I fail to deliver them the way he gives me. Sometimes I remember once I was preaching and I was struggling, and God just let it out on the pulpit in my sermon. Now that was something. Now, finally, Samuel's leadership in Noetic. Sometimes it's difficult. I remember I was in an evangelistic campaign and I had some Catholics in the audience. I was talking about the Sabbath, and I knew it was going to hurt them. And I had some Baptist silverheads that was always there